Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rathyatra Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Rathyatra Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Sankirtana ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Matakoti Vaishnavanda ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna. So we'll just chant our invocation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sahajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanitam Sam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji, for inviting us to your home so that we can celebrate the welcoming of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, which is a very glorious scripture and one that maybe is not so well known to all of us. Many of us have heard Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, maybe some of the Upanishads, the different sections of the Vedas. But how many of us understand Chaitanya Caritamrta? So, we'll discuss a little bit today. So this is the cover of the first book. And anyone knows who these personalities are? They're called? The Pancha Tattva. 5 Tattvas. Pancha means 5. And in the middle we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we have his first expansion, Lord Nityananda. The Avatar incarnation, Advaita Acharya. Shakti Tattva, Gadadhar Pandit. And the devotee in Srivas Thakur. So, we see this verse, Panchatatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavatana Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So these 5 personalities came to perform a specific mission. So, Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta is considered the foremost literature describing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? We have to understand. So, in the beginning of this book, it is explained exactly who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because first we must know who he is before we can then learn about someone and their pastimes. Right? We have to have some context. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna himself. And is Krishna himself coming in the mood of a devotee? And why he came in the mood of a devotee? Because at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we know Krishna says in the concluding instructions, he says, Man manabhava mad bhakto manchaji mam namaskaro mam evashis satyante pratijane priyosime. And then he says, Sarva dharmam prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja ham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishmami ma sucha. So Krishna is telling how to find perfection of life? How are you going to find the absolute perfection of life? Eternal happiness and bliss? You must become the devotee of Krishna. Think of him. Offer your respects to him. Offer your obeisances. You abandon all other varieties of religion and surrender. But due to the grip of Maya and our own false ego, surrender does not come so easily to us. So Krishna was feeling, I told what needed to be done when he came in this Krishna Lila. And in the Bhagavad Gita, I told to Arjuna, for the benefit of all of us, what to do. But then he decides that I must come back. I myself will come back. And in the mood of a devotee, I will show how to surrender to Krishna. So this Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, we see in Ramayana, the Lord shows kind of the laws of how to behave, how to act. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva is describing the actions, the activities of the Supreme Lord, of Lord Krishna. And in Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, the mood and heart of the Supreme Lord is being revealed to us. And extraordinary mercy is being bestowed upon us. We know to make progress in bhakti, we need mercy. Mercy is the help of Krishna. It is the assistance of Krishna to allow us to overcome all the obstacles we have. So Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita contains the essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, and it is giving us this special mood of bhakti with great mercy of how to become the perfect Vaishnava, the perfect devotee of the Supreme Lord. So, in the hierarchy of study, all Vedic knowledge is absolute, meaning it is all perfect. But from an objective perspective, there is some ordering or hierarchy of truth. And that it begins with our Bhagavad Gita. And from there, one comes to Srimad Bhagavatam. And the postgraduate study of Srimad Bhagavatam is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was giving a class, and there was a small earthquake, and the river nearby began to tremble, and instant flooding occurred immediately. And he began to lecture that when a great flood comes, you're going to grab your treasures that you value most and save those. And he said, you should take your Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And you should carry them. But if they there are a couple of different versions of this story I've heard. But if you get tired after walking to high ground, then you can leave behind Bhagavad Gita. If you are still unable to carry, then you can leave behind Srimad Bhagavatam. But carry with you this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because from this, everything else can come back. When Srila Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta to come to the US, he was experiencing great separation from Sri Vrindavan Dham. And he writes in his diary that I am bathing myself in the nectar of Chaitanya Charitamrita to ease the pangs of separation from the Vaishnavas and from Sri Vrindavan Dham. So this Chaitanya Charitamrita is the ultimate scripture for all of us. It is the sweetest nectar that we can relish. So all of us, I hope, by the end of this discussion will be inspired to bring Bhagavad Gita into our home, and then bring Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrta. I promise nothing else after that. Because then you'll always be wondering, well, what's next he's going to tell? Just bring these 3 scriptures into our home, and everything will become perfect. So as bringing Chaitanya, Srimad Bhagavatam is like bringing the Supreme Lord into your home, we're bringing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gauda Bhakta Vrinda, all of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How many of us would like to have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates as guests in our home?
Permanent residents.
Permanent residents, not guests, yes. Very nice. So, what is this? So, what is the meaning of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta? You may wonder, what does that mean? So, Chaitanya means living force. Charita means character. And Amrita, which we are all searching for, to be immortal. So, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta means it is the character of the living force in immortality. The character of the person, we are the living force, we are the person who is immortal. Now, how many of us want to be immortal? Anybody is looking forward to mortality? No. We're constantly searching for immortality. So this Chaitanya Charitamrta is showing us how one should live, what character one should live by that will bring about immortality, eternal life. In essence, it is teaching us how to live an eternal life of happiness in devotional service to Krishna. And specifically, the Chaitanya Charitamrta is slashing the shackles. What shackles keep us here in this material world? It is Maya. Illusion. Maya convinces us to enjoy so many material sense pleasures. And she is kicking us over and over and over again. But it's like tight shackles. We cannot get free from the Maya. So Prabhupada explains in the introduction of this Chaitanya Charitamrta that this scripture will bring about the unleashing, the unshackling of Maya from all of us. So that this character can come about in which we can achieve immortality. And immortality only exists in the spiritual world. Everything in the material world is governed by birth and death, old age and disease in between, over and over and over again. But in the spiritual world, it is just constant pleasure. So how to achieve this for each of us as the living force is explained in this Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta. So that is the meaning of Chaitanya Charitamrta. Now, Chaitanya Charitamrta is presented to us by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is a great, great scholar and pure devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, we are following in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is giving this highest form of bhakti to all of us. And so the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are coming down in Guru Parampara. So, if we look to our page 30 of our Bhagavad Gita, I know you don't have with you, no problem, we'll just read. We see that from Srila Prabhupada we have Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, to Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Jagannath Das Babaji, right? Then Maladev Vidyabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, and then Krishna Das. This Krishna Das is Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami was the disciple of Raghunath Das Goswami, who was the disciple of Rupa Goswami, who was the disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the teachings are being passed down. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, at a very elderly age, he came to Vrindavan after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had wrapped up his pastimes, left, after Swarup Damodar had left. Raghunath Das Goswami left Jagannath Puri in great separation. He came to Vrindavan, and he was there ready to end his life because he could not bear the separation. And Raghunath Das Goswami met Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, and they implored him, "You have spent these last years with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. Please share with us the great teachings and pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." So, Raghunath Das Goswami then had relayed what he had learned from Swarup Damodar. So all of the biographical information we have on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes primarily from 3 diaries. Okay? And the diary from Swarup Damodar comprises the vast majority of the content from Chaitanya Charitamrta. Swarup Damodar was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate associate for the last 24 years of his life. So I'll talk a little bit about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life is structured. But there's pastimes, I should say. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami then heard these pastimes from Raghunath Das Goswami. And then he was ordered by Raghunath Das Goswami and directly by Krishna himself that Radha Madan Mohan Didis had asked Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, "You write this Chaitanya Charitamrta." Now this time, he explains at the end in the Antya Lila that he was basically an invalid. His health was completely failing. He could not see, he could not sit, he could not stand, yet alone hold a writing instrument and try to write all the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrta. And he says, "I am like a wooden doll, and Krishna himself is moving my hand to write this book." He does not claim himself to be the author, but we know he, by his great mercy, has presented this nectar that is the most precious thing in the entire universe. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, when a flood comes, this is what you say, if nothing else can be said. So we owe great respect and homage to Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami for writing this narration of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, he appeared about 500 years ago. Around the same time Christopher Columbus was sailing west to discover America. Actually, he was coming to India, finding a faster route to find the spices and silks. Had he come, well, what would have happened? But Krishna had a different plan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was spreading this revolution of Harinama Sankirtana. That just by chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can achieve perfection of life. So, the pastimes began. The first 24 years, he remained in Mayapur Navadvip, which is near Calcutta, in the home of Mother Sachi and Jagannath Mishra. And he performed many pastimes there. And these pastimes are primarily discussed in Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was presented by Vrindavan Das Thakur. And at age 24, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then took sannyas. He entered a renounced ashram to begin to fully propagate this Krishna conscious philosophy. And so from 24, for the next 6 years, he traveled mostly throughout India, delivering millions and millions of people, clarifying so many doubts in the minds and hearts of so many spiritualists and non. And then the final 18 years he spent in almost seclusion in Jagannath Puri. So from sannyas, he made his headquarters in Jagannath Puri, and upon the request of his mother Sachimata, he wanted to go to Vrindavan, and Sachimata begged, please go to Puri, so we may see you occasionally. So there he spent the last 24, but of the first 6 years, he'd spent a lot of time traveling. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Chaitanya Charitamrta primarily covers the last 24 years of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And these are the extraordinarily instructive pastimes, where he began to explain this great philosophy and also practice it and show it to us. So this is the introduction or overview of Chaitanya Charitamrta. And now, I thought we could read and discuss one specific pastime from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is very timely. So, anyone can see what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing? And where is he dancing? In front of the chariot. Lord Jagannath chariot. So on July 22nd, what will we be doing? Dancing in front of the chariot of Lord Jagannath. So how many of us would like to see and hear what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did in his participation of Rathyatra festival? 1, 2, few. So, let us see what we can learn from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Remember, everything Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did was an instruction to show us how to awaken this pure love of Krishna. Pure love means Anyabhilashita sunyam gyanakamādinavatam anukulina Krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttama. Uttama, the highest bhakti, is pure. Anyabhilash, no. Sunyam, no desires. 0. Nothing. Just constant engagement in favorably serving the Lord, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. So he is showing us how to perform pure devotional service. So we'll read this verse. Verse 60. This is from Madhya Lila, chapter 13. Verse 60. And the title of the chapter is The Lord's Dancing at Rathyatra. This is a mystical chapter of extraordinarily beautiful description, extraordinarily deep description. You must read this at least 50 times to maybe glean some essence from it. It is so deep and vast in what is being explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. When we read this chapter, we should in our heart develop a great mood of gratitude that this pastime was explained to us. Because at the end of this chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives us what is the result of hearing this description. He writes, anyone who hears this description of the Car festival will attain Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will also attain the elevated state by which he will have firm conviction in devotional service and love of Godhead. When we have firm conviction, faith in devotional service, then we can surrender. So the potency, the blessing Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is giving is anyone who hears this description of the car festival will attain these things. So let us just have an appetizer, a sampling of this pastime, and then hopefully everyone will go home and immediately run to pick up this Chaitanya Charitamrta and start reading it. So verse 60. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been very satisfied to see the king accept the menial task of sweeping the street. And for this humility, the king received the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He could therefore observe the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. The purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. The mystery of Lord Chaitanya's activities is described by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Lord Jagannath was astonished to see the transcendental dancing and chanting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he stopped his car just to see the dancing. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then danced in such a mystical way that he pleased Lord Jagannath. The seer and the dancer were one and the Supreme Person. But the Lord being happy and many at the same but the Lord being one and many at the same time was exhibiting variegatedness of his pastimes. This is the meaning behind his mysterious exhibition. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the king could understand how the two of them were enjoying each other's activities. Another mysterious exhibition was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's simultaneous presence in 7 groups. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the king could understand that also. I'll read the translation again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been very satisfied to see the king accept the menial task of sweeping the street. And for this humility, the king received the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He could therefore observe the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. So we see that Lord Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this Rathyatra festival are having very sweet, intimate, and extraordinarily mystical exchanges. But we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. Lord Jagannath is? How they can have mystical exchanges? The same person is interacting. Krishna Kaviraj explains, the seer, Lord Jagannath, and the dancer, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are enjoying each other's pastimes. But it's the same person. This is very mystical. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed many, many extraordinary pastimes in this Rathyatra festival. He began to speak in a way that nobody but the most pure devotees could understand what he was speaking and how Lord Jagannath was reciprocating. Normally when we see the deity, we just see the deity. But the deity is alive. It is Krishna. And the deity reciprocates, exchanges, speaks to his pure devotees, interacts with his pure devotees, dances with his pure devotees. I see, just stone, fixed. But the pure devotee sees Krishna himself. We would like to see Krishna in this way. Next time we go see Radha Kunj Vihari, we'd like to see him in this way. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is giving us how to see. So this king, anybody know the king's name? Close. Prataparudra. He was the king of Orissa. But he is not like today's kings or leaders. He was extremely devoted. He was a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take residence in Puri, King Pratapruta was beyond ecstatic. He wanted to give up everything, give up his whole kingship, and just surrender to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he had a responsibility, so he could not. And he had a very intense desire to have the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mood of a sannyasi, renunciate. So when King Pratapruta requested the company of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to meet him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flatly refused. He says a king is interested in two things: money and women. And I have no desire to be shackled by these material allurements. And so he would not honor the request for the king to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Repeatedly, even to the point where King Pratapruta was ready to renounce everything, his kingdom, even his life. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said no. For a very important reason, as we'll see. So externally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying no. But internally, we'll see the great mercy that the king received. So we should understand, we must be very careful in protecting ourselves from these allurements of the material world. For all of us, we have specific allurements. They're not the same. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not even honor the association of a king, he was showing to us, we must be mindful of these temptations that Maya is throwing in front of us every day. And be steadfast in saying, no thank you. We should run away from these allurements. So what pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much that he says he could therefore observe the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. What is required for us to be able to understand the activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What do we need? We need high intellect. We need to have a nice dhoti or sari. We have to have perfect tilak.
Faith.
Humble humility. Faith. But even humble and humility and faith and devotion, is that sufficient for us to be able to know Krishna's pastimes?
Strong desire to develop the love for Krishna.
Okay, I must have strong desire. I have to have His mercy. He has to give it to us. Now, how He'll give it to us? When we have faith, when we have humility, when we have strong desire. But that independently, it cannot manifest. So on our own, we have no ability to even speak the word Krishna once. It requires the blessings and mercy of Krishna. Yet we think, oh, I'm my own person. I can do everything on my own. It requires the mercy of Krishna. So how the king attracted the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? It was through this menial service. Okay? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been very satisfied to see the king accept the menial task of sweeping the street. So this story begins that, and we know prior to this, the day before, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to the Gundicha temple and performed the great pastime of cleansing the Gundicha temple. Maybe we'll discuss that in a few weeks as our Rathyatra is coming closer. And the next day, this Rathyatra festival is beginning. So in the very beginning, early morning, all the associates, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rose early and went to the temple of Lord Jagannath. And there they watched the ceremony, the procession of the deities being carried. Huge deities, extraordinarily large, heavy. And the giant pandas, we call them, there's a specific name for them. They would carry them 1 foot on a pillow, and then they'd move the pillow and move to the next pillow and move forward just one at a time, all the way from the throne to the chariot. Great effort to move the deities. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami reminds us, who is moving? Krishna himself. He is carrying himself, allowing the devotees to participate in that service. But he is carrying himself. When we cook for Krishna, remember, he is allowing us to cook for him. So he is allowing the devotees to carry him, but he is actually carrying himself. Who can pick up the Lord of the universe, whose belly represents the whole universe? It cannot happen. So in this way, they watched the procession of the deities enter each of the chariots. So Lord Jagannath sits on one cart, Mother Subhadra sits on one cart, and Lord Balaram sits on a third cart. So in this way, they go in a procession from the Jagannath temple to the Gundicha temple. Procession is led by Lord Balaram. Of course, brothers always protect a sister, so sister is in the middle, Mother Subhadra, and Lord Jagannath's cart is in the rear. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the procession is beginning, arranged the 7 kirtan parties. And so he split up the teams into 7 teams. 4 would be dancing and singing in front of the chariot of Lord Jagannath. 1 on the left side, 1 on the right side, and 1 in the rear. So 7 kirtan parties were arranged. In each kirtan party, there was a lead singer, like Swarup Damodar, Shivas Thakur, Mukunda, Govinda Ghosh, and a few others. So there was 1 lead singer and 5 accompanying singers. Then there was 1 lead dancer within each. Lord Nityananda, Advaita Charya, Haridas Thakur, Vakeshwar, and a few others. They were the lead dancer within each party. There were 2 mridanga players in each of the 7, 14 total mridangas playing. And in this way, the 7 kirtan parties created such a ecstatic, blissful kirtan, the whole world was trembling in ecstasy. And while this kirtan is going, there was great pastimes that only a few devotees could see. Now, how the king obtained the mercy to see this was due to his menial task. What was his menial task? In front of the procession, the king was sweeping the street. Now, is sweeping the street a high-class activity? No. But the king, very joyously, was sprinkling sandalwood water on the road and sweeping the street with a golden handled broom. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing this, became very pleased. Because the core of our devotion is humility. Now, it takes a very humble mood to sweep the street in front of so many people. Right? It takes a very humble mood. But Rupa Goswami explains in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that 2 things, when they combined, create extraordinary force for us to go very fast in devotional life. How to make great progress. Sometimes we wonder maybe, I'm not progressing as fast as I would like. I wish, I would have more taste, more experience. What's happening? So he says we should combine two things. Extreme humility and intense desire. To the point of greed. I must have it. I have to have it. More greedy than a 2-year-old child begging for a piece of candy. That intense desire, but extreme humility. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tunadapi sunichena tarodapi shahishna manina manadena kirtanya sada hari. How we can chant the names of Hari constantly? By taking a humble mood. So this humble action by the king pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much that he bestowed upon the king great mercy. And with that mercy, he could see some of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very confidential and mystical pastimes during this chariot festival. So if we want to see through the power of hearing and reading, then we must also develop this very humble mood. And humility simply means knowing factually who we are as a part and parcel, an infinitesimal tiny spark of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fully dependent on the loving mercy of Krishna. That is the meaning of humility. That is it. And it is bestowed when we follow the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Reading Chaitanya Charitamrta, if we read in the right mood and right way, will bestow this great humility upon us also. You can see the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He said, I am a wooden doll. He was the great Acharya, personally instructed by Madan Mohan to write this. And he says, I am incapable. So what pastimes did the king see? Shall we discuss those now? What he saw? So, as the procession was moving, there was ecstatic kirtan and ecstatic dancing, jumping, up and down, so much wonderful kirtan. And these 7 parties were moving with the cart. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself expanded himself into 7 forms and was dancing within each of the 7 kirtan parties. Now nobody else could see that. Each party thought, wow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dancing in our kirtan party. We're so blessed. This kirtan is so nice because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in our kirtan party. And in this way, most of the devotees were enjoying this very intimate personal association with the Lord. But the next kirtan party had the same mood. And the next kirtan party had the same. Only a very few choice, intimate associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually in each of the 7 parties. And one of those was the king. The king who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flatly and publicly refused to see. Externally he was showing, but internally he knew no matter who one is, no matter what one's position is, they may become the most dearest devotee of Krishna. It doesn't matter our social class, high or low, our gender, our race, our age, our intellect, nothing matters. What matters is this desire and humility. And so he bestowed this great mercy, and even the king, who could see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing in all 7 parties. And it is very important for us to remember and understand that we see this pastime in we see this mood in other pastimes of Krishna. During the Ras Lila, Krishna expanded himself to be dancing with each and every one of the gopis. And all the gopis thought, oh, I am so special. Krishna is dancing with me today. In the pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill. Now, we know Krishna was standing in the middle of the hill on a platform. So if someone is in the middle and everyone is around, we know everyone will have a slightly different darshan of Krishna. Some from the front, some from the angle, some from the side, some from the back, and like this. Yet every single resident, what they were seeing of Krishna? His face. They had a front row seat and a front darshan of Krishna. Because Krishna was reciprocating with each and every resident personally. Our relationship with Krishna is extraordinarily personal. It is not one of the Lord sitting in some distant place and we are one amongst trillions trying to compete for the Lord's attention. It is not like that. The Lord maintains a very personal relationship with us. And thus, to give us faith in that, He performs these types of pastimes. And thus He expanded Himself to give His personal association to each of the kirtan parties. And He is waiting to give all of us also His personal association when we have desire and when we obtain the mercy through the humility like King Prataparudra showed. So that is one of the mystical experiences of this Rathyatra festival. Another experience was, and Prabhupada is commenting as he's commenting on the commentary from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada's comments and purports in Chaitanya Caritamrta come from the commentary on Chaitanya Caritamrta from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. From those two commentaries, he has pulled together these purports. But he says that by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the king could understand how the two of them being capital them, meaning Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath, were enjoying each other's activities. Now we have to get into a little bit of background on Rathyatra festival. So when Lord Jagannath comes to the chariot, why he is so ecstatic? Why he is so happy? Anyone knows?
Because he sees his devotees.
One, because he sees his devotees, which makes the Lord very, very happy.
Lost children.
He sees his lost children who may not come to see him in the temple, so he is coming out to see them, so he is very happy. Yeah? Why else?
He's coming to see his mother. Mata.
He's coming to see Gundicha Mata, as he made the promise in the pastime of Indudumna Maharaj. Yes? Any other reasons?
Because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because separation of each other, like.
Okay, because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, their experience is mood of separation. So in every one of Krishna's activities, there are multiple layers of reasons. And they all are correct. They are all true. And we sometimes see we go to the deeper reasons. Like even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami gives us the external reasons and also the internal reasons. They're not contradictory, but they are different levels. We discussed during Gaur Purnima, so we won't take time to discuss now. So, Krishna, when he went to Kurukshetra, now in Krishna Lila, we know he left Vrindavan and went to Mathura after spending 12-ish years in Vrindavan. He went to Mathura. And this was a devastating blow to the residents of Vrindavan. Why? Because when Krishna would go in the morning to the forest, the residents of Vrindavan who were left back in Vrindavan were in extreme anxiety, being just a few hours separated from their beloved Krishna. Their whole day would feel like millions of years because they could not see their Krishna. And when he came back from the forest, there was such an ecstatic reception because they are reunited with their Lord and their life could resume again. It is as if their life was completely devastated in those moments of separation. And this went on for years. But now, Krishna was being driven by Akrura to Mathura. And they didn't know when Krishna was coming back. He said, I'm coming back. But as we know, Krishna's words have many purposes. And so they were fraught with anxiety and desperate feeling of separation from Krishna. Krishna went on to conquer the demons in Mathura. And then he established residence in Dwarka. And for many years he carried on many, many pastimes. But on one eclipse day, he brought all the residents of Dwarka to Kurukshetra. And the residents of Vrindavan, thinking that yes, Krishna may come to Kurukshetra to observe this eclipse, they also came. And this was the first meeting between Krishna and all the residents of Vrindavan after many, 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 many years of separation. Hours of separation were unbearable. Now, after many years of separation, you can imagine the ecstasy and joy of that reunited moment. And that pastime goes very deep, so we won't spend too much time there. But, so Krishna meets Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and all of the different elderly Gopas and Gopis. And then, of course, he meets Srimati Radharani and all the Sakhis. And they are experiencing such transcendental bliss in reunion with Krishna that they say that this royal dress you are wearing, this Kurukshetra, which is so noisy with different chariots and loud bands and things like that, is not pleasing. We enjoy Vrindavan. Vrindavan, where we hear the bees humming and the birds singing and the Yamuna flowing and the simple dress, simple life, that is our bliss. And so they desire to take Krishna on a chariot back to Vrindavan. And Krishna is also aching in separation from his devotees of Vrindavan. He did not leave, and he assures the gopis in his conversations that I also am missing you very dearly. Not a moment goes where I am not thinking of you. So, when Lord Jagannath is arrived atop the chariot, it is in the mood of being pulled by his dearest devotees back to Sri Vrindavan Dham, which is the place of his most happiest pastimes. So Lord Jagannath is very, very happy on the chariot. So yes, because his devotees have come to see him. Yes, because he is going to see his mother Gundicha in the Gundicha temple. But also because of this mood of Krishna going back to Vrindavan. We can imagine if we were separated from a place that we have so much memory, maybe like, when we want to go back home to our hometown, there's so much anticipation and excitement. And as we begin that journey, we are just in a very happy mood, ready to return home, somewhere very dear to us. Like that is the mood of Lord Jagannath. So now, as Lord Jagannath is on this chariot, we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming in the mood of specifically one devotee. Who is that? Srimati Radharani. His most dear devotee. He is coming in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Right? So, now this pastime we see, on the cart is Krishna. And dancing in front of the cart is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So there is a very intimate exchange between Krishna and Srimati Radharani, between Lord Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that only these few rare devotees could understand. So how the heck do we have an opportunity to even understand? Because of the great mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. That they are bestowing upon us a glimpse into this exchange between Krishna and Radharani, between Lord Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on this chariot festival. Shall we discuss this exchange for a few minutes? We have some time? A few more minutes? So, there are many... Anyways, we'll just summarize. We'll read from these. There are so many beautiful verses here. I don't know which ones to pick. So I'll just describe in general, and then everyone can go home and read this beautiful chapter, chapter 13, Madhya Lila. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dancing in ecstasy in front of the chariot. And then he goes all the way to the front of the procession. He turns and he offers his prayers to Lord Jagannath. And he recites this prayer, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanitaya Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaye Namo Namaha. This comes from the Vishnu Purana. And we all chant this every day. And he is glorifying Krishna. And he recites several more verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and other places. And Lord Jagannath begins to reciprocate. And as the procession is moving, Lord Jagannath is fully captivated by the ecstatic dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he is completely overwhelmed. He stops blinking. Now we say, wait a minute, deities don't blink. Of course they do. We don't see it. But in this way, the Lord Jagannath stopped blinking. He was so drawn by the ecstatic dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then this transcendental competition takes place. What is this competition? Competition of whose love is greater, Radharani or Krishna's? Radharani's love for Krishna, Krishna's love for Radharani. Which is greater? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath, in these two moods, are thus enjoying each other's company. Though they're the same person, Krishna and Radha are one person, manifested in two, in the same way. And that's why Prabhupada comments, right? That the seer and the dancer were one and the same Supreme Person. But the Lord being one and many at the same time was exhibiting variegatedness. So, what would happen? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be dancing in front of the chariot as if he is pulling Krishna to Sri Vrindavan Dham. Not to Gundicha. He's pulling to Vrindavan, where they could experience the intimate association of Krishna. Lord Jagannath is wearing royal turbans, royal dress, opulent foods. But the residents of Vrindavan enjoy very intimate, no opulent service with Krishna. So they are pulling like this. But sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Radharani would think, I'm pulling. But does Krishna really want to come? So he would test. What is Krishna's determination to come? So then he would go from the front of the chariot to the back. And when he would go to the back, Lord Jagannath's cart would stop. It would not move 1 inch. Everyone would be pulling and pulling and pulling. But the cart would not move 1 inch. And that was Lord Jagannath telling, I will not go anywhere without you, my beloved devotee. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, oh. And then he would go to the front again. And he would begin to dance. And only then the cart would move ever so slowly, fully Lord Jagannath taking in this ecstatic exchange, this dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And then again, she would go into the back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would return to the back to see, and the cart would stop. And like this cart, Lord Jagannath was going only at the will to show that, to tell Srimati Radharani, I am in your hands. I am only doing what you want me to do. This is the mood Krishna takes. He surrenders himself to the pure love of his devotees. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like this, was going back and forth, dancing here and there, and very sweetly interacting with Lord Jagannath. And then he began to recite some verses explaining this mood of separation. He explains how he was also aching every day. And Lord Jagannath is speaking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, saying, I never forgot you. Swarup Damodar begins to explain some verses, knowing the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that sends Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to an ecstatic mood of dancing. It is explained that tears were flowing from the eyes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like syringes, and everyone was getting wet, being showered by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And at one point during this procession, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fainted in ecstasy. But because all the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were whipped up into this ecstatic mood, no one was there to grab him but the king. This king. Great fortune. Krishna arranges the mercy of all of us to be in the presence to do his service. And he was picked up by the king. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his consciousness, he again in his external mood said, I have been touched by this mundane person interested in material life. And he became very upset externally. And the king was crushed. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explained to the king, do not lament. You have been extraordinarily blessed by Krishna. Yes, externally, sometimes Krishna shows things to teach us. But remember, would the king have been able to pick up and touch the body of the Lord if the Lord did not allow? And thus Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya reminded him, our ability to even enter the temple is only because Krishna is allowing us to enter. Don't think, I desire to go, and I go. Yes, we have to desire extraordinarily strongly, but Krishna has to stamp our visa. Every time. So, in this way, many, many pastimes take place. I'll just wrap up here because it's getting late with one last pastime. So, the chariot comes to this place near one beautiful garden. And that garden was resembling Vrindavan to Lord Jagannath. So, Lord Jagannath stopped his cart. And there also is a time when many, many offerings are brought to Lord Jagannath on this journey. Lord Jagannath gets hungry. He wants to eat. So many, many, many offerings are coming. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, having been dancing in such ecstasy, tumultuous kirtan, everybody in this great ecstatic mood, you can imagine a little bit of tiredness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enters this garden. And on some platform, he shows the mood of fainting, taking rest. And there the king, having a strong desire to have this intimate association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Remember, the king was flatly refused. Even in the picking up, again he was rejected. But King Prataparudra remained persistent, dedicated, determined. And so he was advised to change his dress to a Vaishnava attire. Forgo his royal robe, and he changed into some Vaishnava attire and entered his garden. And he began to press the legs of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this way, he began to press, and he began to sing some very beautiful verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Gopi Geet. And this was extraordinarily pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he slowly came back to consciousness, being expertly massaged by the king. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu greatly glorified the king for his great service. Now, externally he showed he did not know who this person was that was massaging. But he knew Krishna knows everything. And thus this very sweet pastime between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and King Pataparudra took place. And what gave him the fortune of that pastime? His humble service. So then prasadam came for all the guests, all the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who were resting in this garden. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, with his own hands, was distributing prasad to each and every one of the devotees. See how Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. When we serve him, when we surrender to him, he reciprocates back to us many, many times more than we can even imagine. And after some time, the chariot who was sitting just outside this garden was ready to go. So the great, big, heavy pullers came and they were trying to pull. Nothing would happen. Then the king, resuming his duties, called for giant elephants to come to pull the cart. It would not budge. It would not budge until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. He came, left the garden, went to the back of the cart, and with his forehead, he just rested on the back of the cart, and from there, it began to move. Showing Lord Krishna was going nowhere without his dear, dear devotee. Krishna will never leave us if we don't want to leave him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sitting in his mood of Srimati Radharani, was so attached and absorbed. No matter what Krishna did, he was always her only object of affection. So when Krishna becomes our only object of affection, we will also become his object of affection, meaning he will never leave us. So in this way, this pastime, again, we just glimpsed the surface of this very sweet interaction of Lord dancing in this Rathyatra festival. So many other beautiful verses are here, and you can read. And as we begin to prepare for our own Rathyatra festival, we can understand this mood of this festival. And how when we render some service, we are taking the opportunity to connect Krishna to his dearmost devotee in his dearmost place, Sri Vrindavan. So whatever we do in this Rathyatra festival is extraordinarily pleasing to Krishna. And this Chaitanya Caritamrta, every pastime contained within here is so sweet, so nectarian, and so instructive. And once you start reading this, you will not be able to put it down. It is the essence and the crown jewel of everything that we can read. So you have done something very nice, Prabhuji and Mataji, for having the fortune to bring Chaitanya Caritamrta into your home. And we can pray that everyone has this greatest of fortune to bring Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Caritamrta into their home. I promise. After that, no more books. But just desire very strongly. And with our desire, Krishna will make it happen. Krishna can make it happen. Okay? Thank you very much. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Lord Jagannath Rathyatra Festival ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrta ki jai. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nanta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Any questions or comments? Discussion? I know it's late.
Maybe one question.
Yeah.
Why externally refusing the king?
Why externally is
Externally.
refusing? Because he's showing to us, and Prabhupada gives lots of commentary on this. Because we have to refuse it. And what he was refusing about the king was his association with all the material allurements. The position of a king is very opulent. And again, he is speaking in general terms that kings are associated with and attached to their wealth, to their queens, to their palaces, to the royal comforts of life. And those allurements will pull us away from Krishna. When we have great material wealth and opulence, our devotion to Krishna becomes tainted. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing to us that we must avoid this association at all costs. And we must be very strict in avoiding this association if we want the mercy that the same king actually achieved. So he wants to make sure, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did this over and over again. He, many times, we have the pastime of Mukunda. Mukunda at the Mahaprakash Lila was not given Krishna Prema. Why? Because he was also hearing from some other people. Though he was one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most dear associates. He was one of the Kirtan leaders. But he was not given love. Why? Because he wanted to make with one of his devotees a great example. That we should be extraordinarily careful where we hear from. Because, in particular in today's age, so much opportunity here. But if we don't hear from the right sources, we can become contaminated. The heart can be polluted. Junior Haridas, Chota Haridas, he abandoned association with him because he once looked upon a senior lady, showing to us we must be extremely careful. Sachi Mata, his own mother, he did not give Krishna Prema. Because in her own mind, out of love, she had very mildly, didn't speak, but just thought, Advaita Acharya is tearing apart my family. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows to these examples for all of us how serious we must protect our devotional life. When we have a young infant child, how serious we are in protecting that child. Not even a moment that child is out of our attention, out of our sight, out of our protection, right? But with our bhakti, sometimes we let it roam to all kinds of strange, dangerous, swamp-like lands. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing us how intensely we must protect our bhakti. Whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we taste, we are allowing to enter into our consciousness. And so, to show us the importance of this, he played this pastime with the king. Of course, the king, is anyone more fortunate than the king? He was able to massage the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those who were in constant association of him were not given this opportunity to personally. Only very few, Govinda his servant, and few others, Lord Nityananda, had this opportunity. So we can see the mercy is extraordinary. And if you see, sometimes even Prabhupada's dealings with his disciples, sometimes externally we see, wow, he's being very rough, harsh with this disciple. But the internal mercy, we cannot understand. So that is why he did it, to teach us, to guide us. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, when we read Caritamrta, it will make us very sincere in our bhakti. The strict observance of Ekadashi, to the point that hopefully all of you broke your fast within the time to break your fast even. To the activities that should be performed, to the association we should maintain, to the protecting, all for whose benefit? Our benefit. And that is why it's considered a PhD level of study. It's the advanced study. Thank you, Chaitanya. Any other questions, comments?
What is written in Chaitanya Bhagavatam?
Chaitanya Bhagavat? Sir Vrindavan Das Thakur has described all of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes from birth until first 24 years. So he was known as Nimai Pandit. In his very early childhood, he was performing many pastimes. He was also stealing ghee and butter and performing much mischief. Then he went to school and Gurukul, and all those pastimes are discussed. Then he, started a school and was teaching Sanskrit grammar and maybe debating with different types of pandits and all these pastimes. Then, by age 20, he began the Sankirtan movement, the Harinam Sankirtan movement. He was reunited with Lord Nityananda, the pastimes with Chand Kazi, and the pastimes with in the mango grove, and all these wonderful Lilas. They're all described in detail in Chaitanya Bhagavat. And there's also Chaitanya Mangal, which was written by Lochan Das Thakur, which covers other pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And these pastimes all come from the diaries of Murari Gupta, Swarup Damodar, and I'm forgetting a third person who kept a very detailed diary of these activities. But this Chaitanya Charitamrta is considered the principal explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So after reading Chaitanya Charitamrta, then you can read Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangal, and others. This we should. First step of reading is bringing it home. Then we have some scope to read it. And trust me, once you start, you'll finish it in 1 month. So sweet.
So basically, this talks about pastimes and philosophy, and Chaitanya Bhagavatam is basically pastimes.
Well, philosophy is also there. Philosophy is also there. But again, first 24 years, second 24 years. And every one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is philosophy. It is an instruction. Because he told everything in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna did. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is showing by his own example, by how he interacted with the king, by how strict he was in his association, by how strict he was in honoring prasadam, in his rising every day, every morning, going to see Lord Jagannath's temple. All these actions he performed are instructions for us of how to bring about this pure love of Krishna. So his activities are instructions. It's revealing the mood and heart of a devotee. Okay? So welcome our Chaitanya Charitamrta by offering arti and flowers. Some water. Actually, Babu, I have.